Teachers of Reddit, what are the funniest things your students have done that you've had to discipline them for? I can usually keep a straight face, but this one time I lost it. This girl, 4th grade, comes up to me complaining, "Miss Striv, Tyler took my book and rubbed it on his butt and then he gave it back to me." I cackled right in this poor kid's face. I admire her for asking, "Well, are you gonna do anything about it?" I sobered up quickly and dealt with Tyler. And on second thought, I don't want to be a teacher. We were invited by the local movie theater, so I walked up there with my 11 and 12-year-old students. One of them was B. He had ADHD and I loved The Little Time Bomb. It was a citywide invitation, so this gigantic movie theater was filled up to the brim. We had the front seats, so a bit of floor in front of us. Now, the movie wasn't that romantic, Bridge to Terabithia I recall, but there were a boy and girl. Every time they were on screen together, all these kids started howling. Now, I am known to be strict. I had told my kids beforehand there was to be no howling. We were going to enjoy the movie or else return to the classroom and do some beloved spelling exercises. The howling got B worked up. He thought I was going to take the class back to school, so after yet another session of howling, the sound died out. B stood up, walked a couple of feet from his seat so everyone could see and yelled at the top of his lungs, "If you don't shut your mouth, I'm gonna come over and beat the crap out of ya." I had to pinch myself not to laugh my ass off. I was understanding of why he said it. I even agreed with the problem he was addressing. Still, he got a firm talking to. I feel like this is something I would almost do were I not so shy. What? You've never laid the smackdown on a Black Hells Angel biker with a meth problem in a movie theater before? You've never lived. Still, he got a firm talking to. Teacher, come on B, what did we talk about? You need to say going to, not gonna. I was filling in for a kindergarten teacher. I had been in that school class a lot, so the kids knew me pretty well. It was the end of the day and some parents were showing up as we were getting our winter gear on to go to buses. I see this one little boy's dad in the hall, so I start trying to narrow down which little bundle of snowsuit is his kid. I located him right as he was ripping his hat out of another boy's hands. That little boy had the same hat, and he starts marching towards me and his dad. He blows past me with his little brow furrowed, pulls the hat on his head, and goes, "I'm done with this, Dad." Luckily, the dad got to feel the scolding on that one, but both him and I had a good chuckle about it when the kid wasn't looking. I was asking 1st graders about character traits of the main character of a book I was reading to them. One 1st grade boy raised his hand and said, "She was a pain in the ass." It took every ounce of self-control not to burst out laughing. I had a student that was having a rough day. Nothing was going right for him. Some of his work was ruined when it fell on the floor and someone stepped on it. He bonked his head twice, etc. The final straw was when he spilled most of his lunch on the ground. And it was a special hot lunch order. He looked at the food on the floor, looked at me, and just went, "Mrs. my name, I'm done with today." He was normally the sweetest, most soft-spoken 6-year-old in my class, so those words coming out so deadpan from him was hilarious, but he still needed to face the consequences for swearing. Man, I felt it the most about the lunch. Guarantee he was looking forward to a good lunch and thinking, "Okay, I got some chicken strips and fries coming and got my favorite drink." Poor kid. I didn't actually have to do the discipline for this, but it was one of my students. For a couple of weeks, he goaded 2 students to fight. One of the kids had moved here from Russia, the other one was just a neighborhood kid. Then he set up the time and place for the fight. Then he sold tickets, billed it as America versus Russia. He only got busted when other kids started to talk about it. 12 years old, that kid had panache. First time teaching Things Fall Apart to 10th graders. I spent time studying the book beforehand and thought I had prepared myself for any potential ridiculousness with the story, most of which has to do with the violence and pronouncing names and such. But somehow I missed what would be obvious to any middle schooler. We were reading chapter 3 aloud and one of the boys in my class, who normally hams it up for attention, was doing a great job even with the foreign words. He had been stepping up his game recently, and so I didn't see it coming until I read the lines, accentuating with perfect comical timing, "I sacrifice a cock," raining laughter abound. I tried to defuse the situation, but he jumped back in with the story, and who could blame him when the setup was right there? I also kill a cock. I took pulling him from class to have a talk about how tone affects meaning, which he knew very well of course, just to let the class simmer down. It was simple vulgarity, but I had a few good laughs in the lounge about it. My preschoolers have a game they invented called Plank Pile. They all get into plank position and pile on top of each other as rigid as they can and as high as they can. One day they were doing this in the gym and we were sharing the gym with straight up babies. I'm talking less than a year old and just beginning to learn to walk. Suddenly I look over and a baby is laid on the floor by her own power. Not unusual. What was unusual was the 4-year-old about to plank on top of the baby, and then 10 other 4-year-olds circling around like seagulls about to pile plank too. My reaction? You better not pile plank on top of that baby. Y'all better come back here right now. So the kids forget about it and come over to me, where I give them a stern lesson about why you don't pile plank babies. It was so what the heck that I was trying not to laugh, but oh my god if they pile plank that baby. Not a teacher, but a kid in my geometry class got reluctantly asked to leave the room after he did a giant guttural burp for what seemed like 20 solid seconds. I witnessed a student steal one crutch from another student, a friend, as a prank. As he sped off through the grass yard with his ill-gotten crutch, he accidentally let the rubber-tipped end touch the floor. Of course, it stopped dead and this caused the prankster to go flying over it, having been completely taken by surprise. It wasn't a big fall. He landed on his bum only to look up and see me looking disappointedly at him, although trying not to smile. God, that was hard to do. He just accepted wordlessly that there'd be a consequence and I just walked him to the relevant area via his crutchless friend and a sheepish apology. As soon as he was in the company of the year level coordinator, myself and everyone else on duty cracked up with laughter. I was assistant teaching and therefore not in charge of discipline. In the middle of an explanation, one student stands up, walks 2 desks over to his friend, and sneezes all over his face. The kid then returned to his seat like nothing had happened, while the friend casually wiped his face and the other students looked on in shock. I stared at the sneezer with a horrified look on my face for a few seconds and then just said, "Gross." Sneezer turned bright red. Whole class burst out laughing and I checked in with the kid who got sneezed on to see if he was okay. Sent him out to wash his face too. It was flu season. The main teacher was there the whole time and didn't react at all. I taught 8th grade, 14-year-olds. One day after the class returned from lunch, I noticed Michael was missing. I asked the class where he was and Nick replied, "Mrs. G, he's in the bathroom, dropping a deuce." Everybody died laughing, and I was laughing inside. It was a Catholic school. And I felt obligated to invite Nick out into the hall where I asked him to please not use such crass language when speaking with an adult. We both were grinning at each other through my entire little speech. I love that kid. Not a teacher yet, but I'm studying to become one. Back when I was a junior in high school, I took a class where we got to teach preschoolers. We made lesson plans, did mock parent-teacher conferences, etc. Since I was one of the only 2 guys in the class, the children didn't have a hard time remembering my name like they did with the other 60 or so girls, so they knew me pretty well and I got along with them. Near the end of the year, the class went on a field trip to the zoo. The high school students were invited to go along too as the chaperones, which was great because we got excused from school for the day. Near the end of the day, our teacher took the class to the bathroom so that the kids could go before they got back on the bus for an hour. We lived pretty far from the zoo. Because my teachers were all girls, they couldn't take the boys to the bathroom, so I was tasked to stand in the men's room so the boys could go. The head teacher had known me from homeroom for the past 2 years, so she knew me pretty well and was comfortable with me being in there. All was going well until the last boy, I'll call him Josh, didn't want to go anymore, despite saying for the past half hour he needed to go. I asked him what was wrong and apparently the stall looked too strange for him to use. I reminded him that I would be outside the door so he didn't need to be scared, and that it would be okay to use it. Josh didn't like that idea. He didn't like it at all. Josh, in a moment of pure childhood panic, pulls down his pants and says, "Mister," my name, "I want to go here." Josh then pulled down his pants in an attempt to poop on the bathroom floor. Panicked, I start telling him to wait, saying that I could stand directly in front of the door and talk to him so that he knows I'm there. But he didn't like that idea either. My teacher heard me yelling at him to wait, so he decided to open the door to check if everything is okay. only to see me desperately trying to negotiate with a squatting child with their pants around their ankles. My teacher was really understanding, and she handled the situation from there. Josh didn't end up going on the floor and use the toilet, but only after my teacher disciplined him for it. In Josh's defense, he did have a sensory overload disorder of some kind, so it's understandable that he'd be panicked in an unfamiliar place. But to this day, it's one of my favorite stories to tell, and Josh was a great kid for the remainder of the year. Oh man, those are some funny stories. Anyways guys, welcome to the end of the video. If you like this content, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.